I'm more excited to hear what you guys have to say, because I think we can learn a lot from each other and just sharing this information. So let's see. Let me get this on presentation mode here. We can run. So today we're going to talk about best business advice, but really quick. Pete, do you want to just go over, like, you know who we are? Do we want to just go over really quick what's upcoming for September yet, and maybe anything in October that you guys want to talk about? Oh, you caught it right away.
There we go. Probably the biggest thing we want to just remind everybody of is that we have the murder mystery coming up October 9th, and tickets are on sale right now. You can go to McHenryChamber.com, click on the murder mystery icon, jump in on that, get your tickets for that, and just plan on having a whole lot of fun. It's going to be as much, if not even more, maybe a little different kind of fun than the wine walk we had this weekend, but it's going to be a blast. And that'd be about it for the chamber this morning. Thank you.
Cool. The wine walk was phenomenal, by the way. Tim and I just like have so much fun with that, and this was our second year doing it, and I mean, it's something we'll do every year. It's just, it is such a well put on event.
Could I share an event that the health and wellness team of the McHenry Chamber's planning?
Absolutely.
And I wanted to run it by Pete because we're wondering how to do the RSVP, but we were trying to think of how to bring the community together with wellness, and we thought about a wellness walk. So we were thinking of doing a walk on, I think it's Saturday, the 25th at 9 o'clock, meeting at Buddy Z's and just like walking along the riverfront. I have a graphic for it, but I don't have who the RSVP person is from our team yet, and that's why I didn't put the graphic up. But I wonder, can they RSVP to the chamber, Pete?
They can, and I'll shoot you a note after, and we can help you set up how to do that. Not a problem.
Okay, good. And I'll just, if you give me that info, I can get that graphic to you today. Okay, good. Yay. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah.
Another chamber announcement. Wednesday, I'm the speaker for Wings. So if you're not signed up for Wings, there you go.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Okay, so our topic is business advice. So through the conversation, we're just going to share like what we would consider the most impactful business advice that we've received, and why, and how it kind of helped us grow into the professionals we are today. And like I said, the purpose in sharing this with each other is to maybe grow more, right? Because we're never really done becoming who we are. We could always get better, and we might relate to some advice that you've been given, and it might help us grow even more. So I'll quickly share what mine is, and take, any feedback or thoughts around it, and then we'll just kind of all get into it and share what we have to share. So I think business advice can come from all facets. Maybe it's a friend, it could be a coworker, your mentor, like a coach, your direct boss or leader, a meme, a book you're reading. For me, it came from my favorite leader in the corporate world. And it's funny because Catalina Marketing, where I grew up as a professional, I started there right out of college, and literally, was dating Tim, started dating him, married him, had our 3 children, started as an individual contributor supporting sales, and at the end of my career was managing a team of anywhere from 6 to 11 people who were responsible for over $22 million of business. So it was a phenomenal run. And I was very fortunate to work with what I would consider some of the best leaders in the corporate world. And I think that because when I talk about them with others, they would attest to that. Even Tim would attest to what awesome leaders they were at Catalina. But it's interesting because the person that gave me the business advice was the manager or my leader, my director, that I was most afraid to kind of transition into. So being that I grew up at Catalina, I knew all of my directors. I knew the history of Sally, if you will. And Scott came in outside. So he wasn't brought up through the organization and became a director. He came out outside, became a director, and was my manager. And I was out on maternity leave when that happened with Addie. And I was kind of freaking out, like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to cover all the history and the impact I made with this person? I never knew him. And it turned out to be such a wonderful relationship. And he really was a tough person to work for, man. He made my skin crawl. But at the end of the day, he was awesome because he really did help me grow into a true leader, and learn things about myself that I need to work on that make me better as a professional and in my personal life. So what were those, two things? Obviously, a lot of growing occurred. I started at 25 at Catalina. I left when I was 37. So like a whole different person. The first business advice that he gave me is he recognized right away that I had an extreme capacity and ability to get work done, but I had a bad habit of overcommitting and either burning myself out, making a small mistake that meant the world, because quality over quantity, right? And or under delivering and disappointing either the salesperson, the client, the leader, whoever was waiting for the whatever they were waiting for. And I was very much historically in my work life a yes person. Like whatever it is, give it to me, I'll do it. I want to contribute. I want to have my name out there. I want the exposure. I want the recognition because it motivates me. But then quickly learned that having to change time commitments and or missing that time commitment and being behind the gun and having a client follow up with me saying, hey, where was that? You said I would have it at this date, was actually more detrimental to my reputation and how my clients and or inner people thought about my ability to get things done. Like, look, Sally, we love you. We love your energy and what you bring to the table, but we can't necessarily trust that you're going to get it to us in that time. So he worked really hard and said, it's better to commit to what you can deliver upon and over deliver rather than overcommit and under deliver. And it seems so silly and really, really something very simple. But that was not my nature. My nature was to say yes, 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 and then kill myself or make myself look bad unintentionally. So that was very impactful. And it was really hard to transition to saying, honestly, look, that timeline is not realistic, but this is. And kind of give maybe a cushion and then get it to them early. And they were like, whoa, blown away by that. Like, you got it to me 2 days earlier, even though that's what they originally asked for. They forget about that. And I quickly learned how impactful that was. Another lesson that he taught me right away, again, love the energy, love your knowledge, love the fact that you want to share and participate in meetings, but you have to work on active listening. And I was like, what the hell is that? Like, active listening. I'm here. I truly am listening. Obviously, you could see that. I'm participating and answering questions and giving feedback. But I didn't realize that active listening. So like when you're listening to somebody, and I still have to work on this, like this is something I have to work on in my professional and personal life a lot, because I like to talk and I like to relate to people and I just have a lot of energy. But I have to kind of understand that how quickly you respond to something may not always set the best tone, or your eagerness to contribute to a conversation may not always set the best tone, because it can set the perception that you're not listening or you're not listening. So I learned that active listening is truly listening to the person that's talking to you and not thinking about what you're going to say in response to what they're saying. And it's really hard to do that. It's hard to sit there and look at somebody and listen to them without thinking about, oh, this is what I'm going to say to that. And I have a question about that. And actually, they're wrong about that. And basically like picking apart the entire conversation as it's happening, you're not hearing anything. So that was also really impactful for me. And again, that's something that I am not awesome at. I still very much work on it, maybe more in my personal life than my professional life now. Professionally, my job is to listen, so I do that well. But in my personal life, I've been known to take over a conversation or two, or answer before I really even know what the outcome of what that person is saying, or I think I know what they're going to say. So active listening is like a real thing, which I never even knew anything about that, never even heard that term until Scott came into my life, and is absolutely something that I've had to work on and still have to work on today. And it changes the way that our clients perceive us. So like I said, I've become very good at doing this professionally, need to work on it personally. But I think it helps us from a client perspective, both of these pieces of advice together, because again, my job is very much to listen to what people need in order to translate that to Tim to prepare for the meeting with them, but also makes us human to the people that we're working with, and not just, you know, someone taking an order over the phone and then setting up an appointment. And the commitment piece of it is obviously critical in keeping anything organized and pleasing your customers. Changing a timeline, there's nothing wrong with that. But when that becomes a consistent theme of working with an individual, it can be very annoying when you're always missing deadlines. So those were my two pieces of business advice that stick with me. And I obtained them when I was 33. And like I said, from one of the best leaders I ever worked with, but probably one of the toughest people I ever had responsible for me as far as a leader versus, you know, someone who reported to them. All right. So any thoughts or feedback on that? And then I'd love to hear from you guys. Go ahead.
Well,
Ellen.
first of all, I love what you said. It all resonated with me. And especially, and I love the word that you said, impeccable, because has anybody heard about the 4 agreements?
I have not.
The 4 agreements, the first one is be impeccable with your word. So it ties into what Sally was saying, don't overpromise. And also only do what you say you can do, because then if you give more, it looks better. So that's the 4 agreements. And I didn't make these up. These are from Ron Ruel, I forgot his last name, Miguel Ruiz, R-U-I-Z, Ron Miguel Ruiz. Okay. The second one is don't take anything personally. You know, especially if you're in sales. It's a lot of times it's not about you, it's about them. And even if they say no, it's not about you, it's about them. So don't take it personally. And the third one is don't make assumptions. You know, you might think, oh, they don't like me, or they didn't like what I said, or they, you know, they don't want to take action on this now. Don't assume. You don't know what's in their mind. So don't ever assume. And the fourth one is always do your best. And I'm going to add an extra one. Never leave money on the table. Always ask for the business, even if you're scared. Always ask for the business. And I heard Bill laugh, and that's probably very important in your business too, Bill. Yeah. So, okay.
Tim can really relate to that one too. So like, I'll say one thing that has been really cool in working with him is seeing his sales process, knowledge, his ability to put the recommendation together for the client and explain all of that is amazing. And to know when it's the right time to do it and when it's not the right time to do it. So it's not really about leaving money on the table, I guess, but in a sense, it's like, don't be afraid to talk with them about this. If you think they need it, you know, position it and talk with them about it.
And I'm going to put in the chat the 4 agreements, and I'm gonna write down Miguel Ruiz's name in case you want to look it up.
Thank you. So Ellen, you give advice for a living.
No, I don't give advice. I have people go into I bring out what they really want to do.
So yes,
I
okay.
evoke.
Evoke. There you go.
Yeah.
But you obviously have a lot of experience and power in your statements because of the experience and the knowledge that backs them up, that helps motivate people achieve their goals. Have you had someone do that for you? Is that where your journey kind of started? Now we'll talk about your story next month, so don't get into that too much. But just curious, I guess, where your love for helping people achieve their goals and their wants kind of came from. Did it come from business advice that you had received?
Ha, that's so funny. Okay, I'm going to take a step back and I'm just going to say this. I was a counselor for many years. My husband said to me, and my husband is a business owner. He said to me, if you're going to work this hard, you have to work for yourself. So I guess that's business advice.
Yeah.
And so that's when I changed from being a service provider to a business owner. So yes, thank you, Sally, for saying that, because I never really thought of that as business advice, but that was a pivotal point where I changed the thrust of what I was doing.
That's pretty cool. One simple statement. Bill, thank you for joining us.
I have a couple probably. One of them is meet people on their own terms. So I always try to do that. I need the appointment, but I try not to have an agenda with that appointment. More want to listen. And that active listening I need to do probably better at times. But my goal is to bring somebody in my office and just let them talk and get them almost uncomfortable with why I haven't talked about myself. And when they ask me, then I know I've succeeded.
That you've listened enough. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And then another one is I'm not a salesman. I'm an educator. And when you talk about asking for the business, Ellen, if I've really done my job, I don't need to even ask. They just give it to me. And they'll be the ones saying, what's the next step?
That's 100% true. And we operate the same way. And it will make salespeople's skin crawl, but we're not salespeople. So it becomes very natural to us to advise, and people are attracted to that. Absolutely.
They don't want to be sold. They want to learn why. And if you can
Yeah.
answer their whys, the sales take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But if you try to just sell them a product, and I'm sure, Tim, you're selling life insurance. If you try to sell somebody life insurance without setting up the sale, they're going to look at you like, no, we're not doing that. But if you educate, here's the reasons you need to do this, sale takes place.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned life insurance, because that approach there is very much like that. That is a product that if you position it, and Tim, obviously step in because this is your area of expertise, but what I witnessed myself is life insurance comes to us. It's positioned when it's appropriate, but it doesn't come up that often. It's more of like a natural segue into after we've built the relationship with the customer to have that more personal conversation. So I agree, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. It's not a tangible product. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to go buy some life insurance. You got to have the relationship, and you've got to have the conversation and let them form their own justification. The one thing you learn when you're selling life insurance is who hates their spouse. Seriously.
We haven't come across that. We've come across some weird stuff here.
You find out right away who hates their spouse.
Oh, that's funny. Well, thank you. Tim, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I'll chime in. As it relates to the life insurance comment, Bill, you're absolutely right. So life insurance to me is a product sold on relationships, not on something that I present to somebody. Matter of fact, one of my latest ones, it took 4 years of me working with somebody before they even trusted me. I don't want to say trusted me enough, but before they would even allow me to see what they had in their life insurance for us to offer, what we could do for them. Anyhow, but let's go what the best business advice, right? So I can remember being a 16-year-old kid working at KFC, leaning on the counter in front of my district manager. And she quoted the great Colonel Sanders and said, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. Now, that is arguably the best advice I've ever been given, not in the literal sense. Now, at the time, yes, literally, I could be wiping off the counters, I could be straightening up, I could be stocking, whatever. How that applies to me today is if I'm not doing anything, if I'm not running an appointment, essentially I'm leaning. So I should be doing something that's going to improve my business, which would be the cleaning, whether it's marketing, whether it's being on one of these calls, whether it's reaching out to current clients and checking in on them, cleaning up, like literal cleaning up my files, like doing something that's going to improve my business to make it productive. So in a literal sense right now, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean may not always apply. Although when you do have your own office space, it can apply as well there. And if you're working from home, it absolutely can apply. So I would take that as probably the best business advice I've ever gotten. And I didn't realize it though, until I became my own business owner, or when I was promoted to be a manager and had the responsibility of, the presentation of a restaurant during those times. Now, the second one I'll share, and it actually came from KFC as well. The general manager I worked for when I was 16. It's crazy how my best advice was given to me as a teenager, 20 some years ago, especially with all the interactions I had with all these business owners, but these stick out whenever someone brings it up. And essentially it's don't get too big for your britches. She told me, we were here before you and we'll be here after you. And although our personal business, the Santos agency will not literally be here after us, but I'm damn sure that health insurance agents will be here after me, and they were here before me. So don't get too big for your britches. Like there's someone that's competing with you, whether you know it or not. You need to stay on top of your game. You need to be cleaning instead of leaning, all those different things. So those two things I think are the best advice that I've ever been given. And again, 23 years later, I still talk about that. So it has to be. That's
Thank
all.
you. It definitely goes a long way to be humble for sure. And I had that same manager because we worked together. That's how Tim and I met, was at KFC. And she was phenomenal. Charity is her name. And she did not mess around with us teenagers, man, because there were teenagers running that business. I mean, we were shift supervisors, and we had to be trusted. And we were just learning. I mean, she would throw biscuit handles at our heads when we would screw up. So she was not effing around, and she really made me love working because she taught you how to work your butt off, how to take things seriously, but how to have fun. So thank you, Tim.
Well, hang on. I got to add something real quick to that. Just the KFC. So I'm not talking the KFC here in McHenry that you may or may not have visited as of late or in the recent years.
We're talking back in the 90s.
1998, when on Sunday the coupons came out and everybody in McHenry was in the drive-through at McHenry waiting to get their 8-piece meal for $10.99 or whatever it was. Or just like we couldn't. It was a much different time in the world of KFC. So
KFC was like king around.
it was a
here
big
then.
deal. It was a definitely big deal back then.
All right, Diane.
Still delicious.
All right. I wrote down a couple things. So I learned early on that advice, if it's unsolicited, only 7% of people will take it. So if you are just giving advice to people, literally 93% of them are just letting it go straight through your ear. So it's picking the right person then, like, you know, knowing that when you want advice, you're going to a mentor. And so a lot of this is from them. But then when you're giving advice, you guys also to ask permission. Like, I love always saying that, hey, is there any way I could just add a little bit to that or ask you something about that? Just, you know, genuinely curious about them, but asking permission for it. Another thing is never insult a buying decision. I learned that early on in my career, where if somebody was using, I mean, I've had people say, like, I would say, what do you wash your face with? And one of them said, pool water. And you could imagine there could be many reactions to that. But my immediate reaction, because I'd been trained, was just, oh, great, how's that working for you? And then they tell you. And so if you insult their decision of what they're doing, then what makes them think they have the confidence to, you know, make a decision with you? So I learned that very early on, to never insult another product ever. Don't even talk about other companies, just talk about, you know, what you can offer them. Another thing was words really matter. Words really matter. I've tried taking the words why and but out of my vocabulary. Why puts people on the defense. Why didn't you unload the dishwasher? Great example right there. Using the word but, you know, negates everything you said before it. So it's just, if you can, try to stick and in there. And the word don't actually is another one that I try not to say. I don't use the word don't, because if you use the word don't think of the color green. If you tell your kids don't run in the street, it's a pretty big deal. So instead saying stop at the curb, or, you know what I mean? It's telling people what you want them to do. And my kids have actually learned this, you know, to tell people what you want them to do, not what you don't want them to do. When talking to people, be aware of how many times you say I, me, and myself. Because after you hear the word I a couple times, people literally will check out and stop listening to you. And I thought that was amazing advice, because it was the whole idea of, Mary Kay always said, you have 2 ears and you have 1 mouth, use them accordingly. And so really just listening a lot more than talking. And it's funny because you guys are kind of helping me write my class for Wings on Wednesday, because some of these things I already was planning on talking about, but it's adding in a little bit too. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, making sure you're present in the moment, not thinking about what you want to say. You had mentioned that, Sally. It's so easy to do that. I think the best thing to do is to use their words back to them. That's the most, you know, other than your name, hearing your name. If people use the words back that they're using, they automatically will relate to you. Somebody says rad, start saying rad. They're going to love you. That whole idea. But I mean, I had 2 more, but I don't know how many I can keep going here.
You're good. We still have 30 minutes and we have Victoria, got 2, and Pete. So go ahead and share the other 2.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody told me, I think it was a Harvard study, and it said 10% of people won't like you. Just 10% of people will not like you. It does not matter who you are. If you think of Mother Teresa and Jesus, okay? More than 10% of people do not like him. So if you think about that, like whenever anybody says that if anybody gives me attitude, or I just know that they don't like me, I go, oh, they must be part of the 10%. And then I can allow myself to move on much faster. That was great advice. And then the last one was on delegating. If it doesn't bring you joy and it doesn't get you closer to your goals and dreams, you know, to delegate it, because time spent one place is time away from another. For example, I've lived in this house for 15 years and I have never vacuumed a whole thing or cleaned a bathroom, because I told myself I'm going to work harder to make sure I never have to do that. Because just because I can clean a toilet better than probably most people doesn't mean that I should be. You know, it's doing penny jobs during dollar time. And so I think that's really an important one also. And when you have somebody else doing your work for you, or, you know, delegating, then only 80% of what you wanted will get done. So just expect to go in having to make up that extra 20%, but it already saved you time because you didn't have to do the other 80%.
Yeah, thank you. I think so. The biggest takeaway currently for this meeting is what you said just now. So Julian is my 3-year-old. He's about to be 4 on Saturday. And he is a handful. So there is a lot of instructing on what not to do. And there's not a lot of listening going on. Di, we've talked about this before, but tell people what you want them to do. How simple is that? I'm going to try it. Instead of saying, don't run into the street, You need to wait for me and we have to look both ways. Don't run out the front door without your pants on.
Yeah.
I will tell him what I want him to do, because guess what? When I told him to go give dad a kiss goodnight and get his milk the other night, he just went and did it. And so that's really simple, but that's a big takeaway for me. Also, like, refrain from the I, me, and myself when talking to somebody feeds into the active listening. Just be genuine on your response. Everything doesn't have to be prepared and scripted, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Could I just say
Okay,
one quick
Victoria,
thing?
how are you?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say one quick thing, and that is that I will think, okay, what will an 8 do? And then with the enneagrams, what will an 8 do?
Mhm.
And then that empowers me because I'm not an 8.
That's true too. I definitely think there's a lot of power in that information that Diane shared, and how to relate to people and talk, like what to expect from them kind of upfront when you enter a conversation, or like sit down at dinner or whatever it is. Yeah, for sure.
Your
Hi,
language.
Victoria.
Hi, everybody.
How are you?
I'm doing well for a Monday.
Good. Happy Monday. All
Same.
right. Business advice or thoughts on anything that's we've been saying?
I mean, like, I couldn't say a hearty amen and yes to enough in the people that have shared. And yeah, I'm probably one of the newer business owners in this group that is talking today. So I feel a bit intimidated. However, somebody told me it's never too late to start. Which I appreciated because I opened up my business in my 40s after working for somebody else, Ellen, for many, many years and building their business. Do big and scary things and catch people doing great, amazing things both in and out of their business. That's all I have.
I really like to do big things. I do, because listen, I think people are afraid to take risks. Some people aren't, but I think most people are not like, let's just jump into everything that we can. But I definitely think that we pass things, like some of our greatest experiences or opportunities up because of fear of what's going to happen, you know? So I really like that one.
And that doesn't speak to me on a daily basis, but sometimes I have to evaluate, is this something in alignment with my mission personally and professionally? And times when I do take those risks, Sally, it pays back tenfold on things I didn't even anticipate on my radar of learning. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And also, you're never too old to start. I mean, I love that as well. Like, when I turned 40 a year ago, I literally said, like, hold on, I need to change some things. And I wasn't like, well, who cares? You know, I'm 40, so it's fine. Like, the way I am is just the way I am. And you put the work in and you change it. So you are never too old to start if it's something that you're passionate about or something that you want to do. I like that as well. Anybody else have thoughts about that?
I just have one quick thought, and that is do it scared. Even if you're afraid, do it.
Yes. And why would you say that, Ellen? Do it scared. What do you think? Like, I agree with you, but what do you think are the best outcomes that present themselves?
It's more important to do it because most of the time people are scared anyway, and they're afraid of what others will think and whatever. And if they start getting into their head, they're not going to do it. So if you say, okay, I'm going to do this scared, you just propel yourself to do it. And, you know, you won't lose. Doing it, you won't lose.
I also think, and would add to that, and I think the regret, and regret is maybe not the word, but the woulda, coulda, shoulda that you put yourself through is almost more detrimental than doing something and maybe not succeeding than not doing it at all.
And I think somebody said before, you don't have to be perfect. Sometimes I do things and I say, you know what, I'm not perfect and I don't want to be perfect.
I struggle with that a lot. And Di, you know that obviously that has a lot to do with the fact that I am an 8 and I want to be everything you want me to be.
3.
But
Yeah,
what you
3.
really want me to be is just be me. But I'm
Yeah.
so many different people. So it was an interesting conversation to have with Di about that. And we need to have more conversations about that because it's so cool and it's very true.
And getting back to what you say, Sally, and it probably links in what Diane has told you, but be authentic. You be you and I'll be me.
And why is that so hard, right? Or so easy for some other people?
Yeah, it's easy for quite a few of us, but not for 3. Sorry, Sally.
But it was interesting because when I walked into the conversation with her, I knew that. And I was 100% myself because I was like, she's going to see right through it and be like, what are you doing?
No, yeah.
So she got all me, and because I knew I had to bring that to the table, I wasn't going to hide from her. All right. So Pete, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. I think like from an HR perspective, again, being a mentor, you have a lot of great things to contribute and to say. I'd love to hear maybe some things that you have said, but also some things that you heard.
I have actually said a lot of the things you guys have mentioned over the years to other people. Tim, I absolutely love the don't get too big for your britches. There's always going to be somebody there to replace you. You're not irreplaceable. Absolutely no one is, no matter what. If you're a solo entrepreneur, the thing you started may go away, but someone else may be doing what you're doing down the street. You just never paid attention or didn't know. That's a big one that especially when I used to run call centers long ago, and we hired a lot of really young people to take calls. Working with young people was frankly not one of my favorite things to do. I didn't really enjoy it. The active listening thing, Sally, was fantastic. The commit and over deliver on what you can do. Long ago, I used to refer to that as the Scotty syndrome from Star Trek, because in every episode, Captain Kirk would say, you got to give me more. You got to give me more. And Scotty would say, there is no more. I got no more. And then miraculously, he gave him more and the engines did everything they needed to do. And Scotty saved the day. Always be a Scotty. That was a big phrase back in the 80s when I was entering into the work world, be a Scotty. But it was kind of the same thing. Commit on what you can do, then over deliver. Save the day when you can save the day. Ellen, the 4 agreements I absolutely loved. I'm so glad you brought that up. That was another big thing that we had learned, or I had learned early on in my career. Be impeccable with your word. That's really all you've got. You don't have much else. You just don't in any kind of relationship. If you're not good enough to pull through on what you say you're going to do or do what you're going to say, actions speak far louder than words. You can talk a good game, and if your talk doesn't match your game, you've got nothing. You really don't. And then Bill, meet people on their terms and let the customer ask for next steps. I like that. What struck me though is that Bill, Sally, a couple of you said we're not salespeople, and with that, I will respectfully disagree. Every single person in the world, no matter what, is a salesperson, whether you're on the job or in your personal life. You're always selling yourself. And Diane, you mentioned 10% of the people in the world just aren't going to like you. Well, that's difficult for me to believe because my mother raised me to believe I am the crown prince of the universe.
Of course.
Believe me, that, and that job does not pay well, I discovered Tim, talk about being too big for your britches. Boy, did I learn that one the hard way personally when I entered the world at large and discovered I am not the crown prince of the universe in so many people's eyes. But every single interaction you have with people, this right now is part of a sales process, whether we, and that is a way to drastically oversimplify the thing of interacting with people. But it is so true. Every single person is a salesperson. Every time you open your mouth, every time you look at a person, every time you stand in front of somebody, the look on your face, the way you hold yourself, uh, body language says more than most of the words coming out of your mouth, or may completely contradict the words that are coming out of your mouth. It's extremely important to me. So that's when people say I'm not a salesperson, that's what goes through my mind. And I think I think maybe you are, because you're trying to sell me on the fact that you're not a salesperson, which is supposed to put me at ease to buy from you, because I'm not buying from a salesperson like the guy on the Pee-wee's Playhouse who would come to the door, that puppet who was the salesman, and they would all scream, "Oh no, it's a salesman!" I hated the idea of I once upon a time I didn't want to be called a salesman, because immediately my brain would go to the used car lot guy who comes running at you the moment you open your own car door, and I hated that. It just is something else. And Victoria, it's never too late to start. Absolutely right. It's never too late to do whatever you want to do. I agree. I mean, I was 51 when I jumped into the station with Kent. What the heck are you doing, Pete? Well, I know I know what my intents are. I have no idea, or had no idea, how to even run an internet radio station. I didn't even know what one was when I did that, but I knew as long as I could talk, I would have something to do, and we've learned it on the way, and we're having absolutely a ton of fun. And again, even though I just said body language and facial expressions are extremely important, Diane, you could not have been more right when you said words really matter. They do. Words absolutely matter. And I love the way that you talked about speaking in the positive, because it's impossible for your brain, for the human brain, to wrap its head around a negative. When Diane said, don't think of the color green, you have to, in order to know what not to think about. There's literally no way around that for your brain to function. And that's why even now today, I will say, when my kids leave, drive safely. I won't tell them don't speed, don't do it. Drive safely. Please drive safely. Please let me know when you're home. Please, and I make it a request, and I always say the please. And being present in the moment. This moment's been friggin' awesome. For again, Victoria, do big and scary things. If something freaks you out, you got to do it. I'm scared to death of bridges, but I'll go over them when I have to. I can't, I don't know why. It's an unnatural thing. I don't like heights either. That fear came when I was in my 40s. The bridge thing came when I was in my 40s. I don't
like bridges either.
It just did. It just happened. And then I'll wrap this up real quick here with a couple of things that were told to me that helped me tremendously. I once had an old boss way back when I first started in staffing, before I owned my own. And one day I was extremely just frustrated with him to no end, because he refused to take on a block of business. It was $1 million block of business. Our profit on it was going to be well over a quarter. And we were going to give up about the equivalent of about $50,000, because one of the conditions was the person, we were taking over this block of business for temps. And they said, well, the other agency gives them X amount of days off every year. And I looked at it, I did the math. It would have been about 50 grand out of the $250,000, still leaving us 200,000 in pure gravy. Doable, no problem. And he said, no, we're not taking it. And I'm like, dude, it's an extra 200 grand a year. This is a no-brainer, and it's going to be extremely simple to do. And he said, Pete, I need you to think like an owner. You're spending my money left and right, and you're not thinking like an owner. And I stopped, and I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, you're taking money out of my pocket when you're selling it like that. You know what? I am going to think like an owner, and I think I can do this a lot better than you. So long. And I then actually offered to buy his company, and that didn't make him very happy. We did not part on great terms. He did not appreciate my offer that I extended to buy his company. But he truly, that flipped a switch, and I knew that it was the other thing is, don't, and this is another thing that I learned very, very early on. And you talked about leaning, Tim, earlier, and that's kind of what triggered this, is in a bit of a different way. Don't complain about what you don't teach. If I haven't taught you to do a thing, I have no business complaining at you for not doing the thing, or not doing the thing correctly, or doing it the way I expect. Teach and set expectations as early on as you possibly can. That worked for me immensely. Don't complain about what you don't teach. Setting expectations up front. And Diane, even if you don't get that 80%, or that, no, Sally, you were talking about the 80%, or Diane, one of the two of you said the 80% thing.
That was Diane.
Diane, if you get the 80%, be happy with that 80%, because no one's going to care about your business as much as you do. If you get 80%, yahoo. If you get 70%, that's okay too. If I got less than 70%, maybe I need someone else, is what usually went through my mind. And the last thing is just be a doer. You mentioned, Ellen, do it scared. Sally, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Make a decision. The moment you make a decision, at least you can take a step forward. And if it turns out to be the wrong step, change your decision. The world's not going to end. It's real simple to say, that was the wrong thing. I just did way the wrong thing. Let me turn around and do the right thing now. It's super simple. Yeah, it can be scary, and you may not know if it's going to be the right decision until you do the thing, but it's super simple to step back and correct. It always is. And with that, I'm gonna shut up.
Thank you so much I like that you recap what we've said, because it makes me think about new things, or it like brings up additional thoughts. So don't complain about what you don't teach. That is so true. And a conversation that Tim and I had with Gabe comes up. So Gabe is our oldest son. He's going to be 15 in a few months, and he's got his first job. He works at Culver's. And one night he got off at 8 o'clock. He usually works like 4 to 8. So that's like a busy time. And he just was getting his stuff and like getting ready to leave. It was 8 o'clock. He's like, I'm out of here. And so he gets in the car, and he said, I asked him, how was your night? And he's like, oh, it was okay, And he told me that his boss was like, well, wait a second, did you ask anybody if you could leave? And he said, well, it's 8 o'clock, I'm off at 8. And what his boss was kind of like, oh, these teenagers, they have no common sense at all, is what he said to him. And Gabe was like, well, wait a second, this is my first job. So you're supposed to be helping me understand what's the right thing to do and what isn't the right thing to do. And that coaching and that like response that Gabe gave to his leader comes from working with two people who grew up in restaurants and had our first jobs in restaurants. And we know, like, you can't walk out the door until there's no line, right? It doesn't matter what time you get off. You're there until it's not busy. You don't know that when you're first starting to work. You think, this is my scheduled time and I'm going to go ahead and go. So it stopped his leader like dead in his tracks to be like, great point, and it kind of like saved their relationship, because it helped Dave not generate this perception that his leader is an asshole, right? Or like, screw working. If I'm off, I should be like, his mindset is correct about working. He's not like thinking from an entitled, like, mindset, but he wants to learn. He wants to learn how to be a good worker and work hard. He obviously sees, Tim and I like to work. We work hard. There's rewards to that and fun. But it was just interesting because he's like, well, wait a second. This is my first job. So I don't even know that simple fact, that maybe I should ask before I go. So that's really important. I also have a really good friend who recently hired on a couple of individuals. And this past summer, we were talking about how they weren't meeting expectations. And coming from a leadership background and being coached, in the corporate world and how to be a leader, by the book, I guess, if you will, I was like, well, have you even talked with them? Have you even started having the conversation? Well, no, when they do something wrong, I just fix it. I'm like, well, that's never going to change anything. You need to teach. So I think, so that's another thing that really resonated with me. And you just said that. I think that that's important. Like, it seems like common knowledge, these things that we have said, but I don't think that they are. And that's why they've been so impactful to us. And sometimes I think, we think we know certain things until you hear it from a different perspective, or you hear somebody else say it. I think that's a funny thing about people is Tim could tell me something, or my best friend could tell me something, and you could say the exact same thing to me and it's going to mean more than when it came from them. And I think that goes back to what you said, Di, about timing, making sure that people are ready to hear what you have to say. Or actually, Ellen, maybe it was you. I can't remember which one said it, and I apologize. But, like, make sure that it's the right moment, or, the person is open to the feedback that you're giving, because you really can learn a lot from each other. And from what we've screwed up, right? Let's face it. So.
And tying into that, Sally, is just be humble,
Yeah,
and be vulnerable so that you can have new learning. You can experience new learning.
yeah, yep. So speaking of being humble, one of the major takeaways that Tim and I got from the about 400 people that we had come into our office is, I don't know if you've not been in our office, I have a lot of me sitting right at my desk. So I don't even have to be here, and you're going to get a really good flavor of who I am and kind of like my mindset and how I operate. And one of my favorite pieces of artwork that I have, I actually bought for Tim when he first started. And it was the first piece of artwork that he hung in the first office that he had. And it says, "Stay humble, work hard, and be kind." We must have had 100 people take a picture of that picture that I have hanging in my office here by my desk, along with many other things. People like real people that are not afraid to show who they are, or like you said, to screw up, to be humble, to accept the mistake, to take advice, to learn, to continue to grow. So that was what our session was all about today. I hope you guys found it impactful. I know this particular group meets a lot, so I think it's cool that we were able to kind of share these things with each other. I took away 2 important things myself. I'm definitely going to change how I address Julian, or do better. Instead of being no, it's more telling him what is acceptable. That's a big takeaway. So thank you for whoever said that. That's huge. I'm putting that into my life like immediately, or I will try. Okay, so next month, I can't believe it's already almost October. We have like 2 weeks to go. We're going to be talking about the power of our story. Depending on how many people join us, we could have to do this in 2 sessions, possibly, Pete. So we might do it November 2. We'll see how it goes, because I don't want to shortchange anybody. Again, I think we're all very interesting people. And if you didn't attend Wings in February, you have no idea how I ended up here. And it is a lot more involved than just, my husband opened up a storefront and I couldn't let him have all that fun on his own. It has a lot to do with a lot of deep things that, a lot of people probably don't know. But it's a big part of my story and why I'm here, and how, it catapulted me into a completely different direction in my life. Totally. And also helped like break open our business. Who knew the dynamic duo would do well in this capacity as well. So I'd love for you guys to attend. If you could maybe pull a friend, from the chamber to join. I think this is an interesting one. And I don't think a lot of us, while we all introduce ourselves and we attend working together, I don't think anybody ever gets into how did we get here? Why are we doing this? So would love to hear from all of you. And if you can maybe grab a friend to join us, that would be awesome too.
How long are these talks?
So the session will be an hour.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, it's hard to say, prepare 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, like if it's our group, if the group is small. But if it's bigger, we prepare for 5 minutes, I would say. And if we can go a little longer, we will. And if we have to stretch it out to November, if it's like that, you know, great. And we have like 10 people join us, that would be amazing. Then we'll talk about it in November too. Because again, I think it helps us know each other, refer business to each other. And just, you know, again, be just real people instead of like the face that we might show everybody day in and day out. All right. So how do we do on time? We got like 4 minutes. So that's pretty good.
I just want to say, Sally, what a great meeting this was, and everybody. I learned so much, and it's very valuable. This group is a very valuable asset, I think. And I also want to say, Diane, I'm so sorry. I'm going to miss your wings. I would love to have it taped, but I don't know if they can. But I know you're going to say some great things. And also, Sally, I missed your wings, and I can't wait till you tell your story.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. I know. I think so. Those are very cool sessions. Wings is a awesome thing. And I had not attended until I was asked to present. And then I got an idea of what it really is about, and it's very cool. So Diane, I'm excited about Wednesday. I'm going to go to the calendar and take a look. I need to be better about looking at the calendar. I feel like time is just flying.
Mine is about, it's a fun topic because I've never trained on it, so it'll be fun. It was basically how to be in sales when you think you hate selling.
Yeah, that is awesome for me because it's interesting because that's one of the reasons, like, I never have thought that I was good at sales. And I don't do the selling here literally, but I do. Pete, like what you said, the whole reason why anybody's even coming in the door is either because they work with Tim and are referring business to us, or it's me calling, trying to grow our business. So that's going to be a good one, Diane. Cool.
It
Well,
really
thank you guys
is.
so much for your time. Appreciate it. I've grown to become very connected with this particular group of people. So I appreciate your guys' support and everything that you offer up. It's always so wonderful.